Hi, guys. Welcome to the first episode of Mer Murder, where we put the Mer in murder. My name is Mercedes Rose. I'm your host, and I just want to thank you guys all so much for being here. I posted my intro video a couple days ago, and the love and support that I got was astounding, like insane. And I'm just so grateful for you guys all being here and supporting me on my journey. And that's really it. I just want to say thank you guys so much for being here. We'll usually start the episodes with a little chat and maybe any life updates. At the moment, I don't have any. Really, the only update is that you guys are here watching me start my new show, and that's super fun. And there isn't really much. Oh, I got some new Uggs. If you know me, and this is not sponsored, I only got 12 listeners right now. Ugg is not sponsoring me. But if you know me, you know that around fall and winter, I always get a new pair of Uggs or like 5. This time I got 4. And I mostly got like the platform ones. I don't have them in here with me right now, but I got like the short platform, like mini Uggs, and they are so cute. But I cannot drive with them. I was going like 90, allegedly, down the highway and I was going really fast because like that huge chunk of like shoe is so much closer to your brake and your gas than you think. So I'm putting my foot on it and like, oh my gosh, I was going so fast. But I do love them and they're super cute and they went really cute with my outfit today. And that's really it. I don't really have anything else besides thank you guys so much for being here and I love you, and let's get started with our show today. Our first episode of Mer Murder takes place in the infamous Lone Star State, Texas, more specifically Plano, Texas. Plano is one of those cities where everyone knows everyone and you all end up running into each other at some point or another. There's many positives to tight-knit communities such as this one: friendly neighbors, common hangout spaces, and one of the best is being able to create strong bonds and make great lifelong friends. Friends that would do anything for each other and show up for each other no matter what. Our victim in today's case was the prime example of one of those friends, and I would like to take the time today to tell you guys all his story. Jacob Law Rusk was born February 25th, 2002, and grew up in Plano, Texas. Jacob was the eldest of 2, and he absolutely adored his younger brother, striving to be a great role model for him every day. Jacob also had many friends, many of which he had since childhood, who loved him like a brother. Like I said before, Plano was one of those cities where everyone knows everyone, whether you went to the same school, your older siblings went to the same school, you joined the same clubs or played the same sports. Paths were bound to cross in this town, making the community feel like one huge family. Jacob was known as a very kind, caring, and funny kid, and he was a bit of a class clown too. He attended Vines High School in Plano, Texas from 2016 to 2018 during his freshman and sophomore years. Vines High School was one of many, I guess you could call them junior highs, where they only have 9th and 10th grades enrolled, and they eventually feed into a senior high school where there's only 11th and 12th graders. Jacob had a host of hobbies from sports to music, and he was passionate about it all. He played the cello in his school's orchestra and also played for the football team. Now, Jacob wasn't your average 16-year-old. By his freshman year, he stood at around 6'2" and weighed about 275 pounds. So he was a pretty big guy. And this, as well as his talents and passion for the game, allowed him to excel at football, where even though he was a freshman, he played for the varsity team at Plano Senior High School. Jacob played as a center and sometimes offensive tackle, and his jersey number was number 69. Jacob was on the varsity team throughout high school, but suffered a back injury, unfortunately sidelining him for much of his football career. However, being the guy that Jacob was, that didn't stop him from supporting his teammates and still living his life to the fullest. He spent most of his time with his friends and his girlfriend, just creating core memories throughout high school. And he went on to graduate Plano Senior High School at 18 years old. But Jacob, like many of us, was a part of the unfortunate class of 2020. If you aren't aware or don't remember, which I think is almost impossible to forget, January of 2020 was when the world was hit with the COVID-19 pandemic, causing over 1.2 million deaths in the United States, and for those of us who survived, we were isolated from one another for years and missed out on many milestones in our lives that we worked so hard towards and looked forward to, such as prom, graduation, and even the start of our college careers. Although things were looking bleak, and we were all so unsure of our future, Jacob was still living his life and pursuing his dreams. With his passion for music, Jacob began his music career as a rapper with the stage name JR Too Raw. He wrote his own music and began selling it while also becoming a pretty influential and well-known up-and-coming artist. Many artists in the area credited Jacob with his natural talents to make beats and music and also being extremely reliable, often staying up in the early hours of the morning, being able to help them with creating music and just give them a boost in the confidence that they needed in their own careers. On September 10th, 2020, Jacob was signed to a label formerly known as Expensive Habits Global. I'm not sure what the label is called now or if it even's still running, but Jacob was very excited to be taking the next steps in his music career. Unfortunately, just a few weeks after being signed on October 3rd, 2020, Jacob's exciting new chapter of life would come to an abrupt end. On October 2nd, 2020, that late Friday night was supposed to be like any other, quarantine and work on some music as usual. But that night, Jacob was invited out by some friends. Obviously looking forward to spending time with them after being isolated from everyone he cares about for so long, Jacob jumped at the opportunity. But this was not just a normal hangout. You see, Jacob was someone who was always there to help, someone his friends knew they could rely on any day and at any time, especially if they were in trouble, and tonight one of them was. One of his friends, and for the sake of anonymity, we'll just call him Adam. Adam was having issues with another kid from a rivaling school. The two often exchanged words over social media, words that turned into threats, and eventually things got so heated that the two decided to meet up at a local park to fight. Jack Carter Park in Plano, to be specific. However, Adam had fears that the fight might get out of hand, so he called one of his friends to gather more of their friends and meet him at the park where the fight would go down, just so they could be around in case things got ugly. Jacob Rusk was one of those friends that was asked to show up. And of course, being the type of guy Jacob was, he was ready to help and protect his friends at any cost. As the hours of the night passed, the group of 4 or 5 boys arrived at Jack Carter Park, ready to face whatever was to come. It was now the early morning of October 3rd when at 2:15 a.m., Jacob and his friends noticed a car pulling up to the park, anticipating the moment when the other boys would get out of the car and the fight would begin. But this moment would never come. Instead, as they pulled up to the spot where Jacob and his friends stood, the driver and his 2 passengers rolled down all their windows, pulled out guns, and began spraying the park with bullets, aiming directly at the group. The young men began running and ducking for cover, but obviously the park was an open space and there really wasn't anywhere to hide or take shelter. One of Jacob's friends, we'll call him Tyler, crouched down, ducking for cover as shots let off all around him. At that exact moment, a bullet was headed straight for his head, and Jacob heroically stepped in front of Tyler to shield him from it. A single bullet struck Jacob once in the thigh, and the 3 boys in the car sped off, fleeing the park, leaving Jacob wounded and his friends traumatized. Jacob was the only person to get shot that night. The bullet struck him in his femoral artery, and he began losing a lot of blood. His friends hurried him into the car, trying their best to tend to his wound and stop the bleeding, all while talking to him in efforts to keep him awake as they sped to the hospital. They tried their best to comfort their friend, holding him in their arms as he bled out in the car, but unfortunately, at just 18 years old, Jacob Rusk was pronounced dead upon his arrival to the hospital. Jacob Law Rusk was laid to rest at Ridgeview Memorial Park in Allen, Texas, a city that's about 20-ish minutes away from Plano. Due to the pandemic, Jacob's funeral services were delayed and held about a month after his passing in November. Dozens of people with heavy hearts attended his service to attest to the kind of young man Jacob was and was growing up to be. There was a large group of people whose lives were touched by Jacob, and they stood together sharing memories and anecdotes about him, grieving the loss of his bright light. The community was brought together once again, but for the saddest of reasons. During that early morning on October 3rd, officers responded to the scene at Jack Carter Park after reports were made of gunfire in the area. They were alerted on their way that there was already a victim at a nearby hospital with a gunshot wound, but as they arrived to the scene, Jacob was already pronounced dead, and their investigation was now a homicide. Now, it's not stated anywhere how the officers found their suspects, but on Sunday, October 3rd, the same day that Jacob was murdered, the first 2 suspects were arrested in connection to his death. 18-year-old Rudra Patel and 18-year-old Abdulrahman Al-Dalami were arrested and charged with his murder. Patel was also charged with drug possession while in custody. Both were held at the Collin County Detention Center in Plano and were given a bond of $1 million. Just 2 days later, 18-year-old Michael Anthony Davis was also arrested on Tuesday, October 5th, and was charged with murder as well. All 3 of Jacob's killers were captured in a matter of days and were awaiting their trials. I also couldn't find much information about the actual trial of the murderers, but what I did find is that on March 7th of 2022, Rudra Patel was convicted of aggravated assault with a deadly weapon and 1 count of murder. Patel was sentenced to a total of 32 years in prison. 2 years for the aggravated assault charge, and 30 years for the murder of Jacob Rusk. His projected release date is October 3rd, 2050, and he will be 48 years old. Unfortunately, he was given time served, so the 2 years he spent awaiting his conviction counted towards his sentence. Patel will be eligible for parole on October 3rd, 2035 at 33 years old. But until then, he will sit in the Mark W. Michael Prison Unit in Tennessee Colony, Texas, which is about an hour and a half from Plano between two neighboring cities, Tyler and Waco. On May 4th of 2022, Michael Davis was convicted of 1 count of aggravated assault with a deadly weapon and 1 count of murder, which sentenced him to a total of 11 years in prison. 2 years for the aggravated assault charge, and 9 years for the murder of Jacob Rusk. His projected release date is October 4th, 2029, and he will be 27 years old. He will also be eligible for parole in June of 2027. Unfortunately, like Patel, Davis was also given time served for the 2 years he spent awaiting his conviction. However, Davis was eligible for parole in April of 2025, but was denied due to the nature of his offenses, lack of institutional adjustment, and the lack of time served because the severity of his crimes were too great compared to the time served. Davis remains imprisoned at the Dolph Briscoe unit in Dilley, Texas, about 5 hours south of Plano near San Antonio. Lastly, Abdul Rahman al-Dalami. His records regarding his conviction and charges were specifically harder to find, because as of 2025, he has been released after only serving 5 years in prison for his part in the murder of Jacob Rusk. Not only is al-Dalami free, but today, Wednesday, October 29th, 2025, he celebrates his 23rd birthday. After playing a role in taking someone else's life, he, frustratingly enough, gets the privilege of celebrating another year of his, freely in society. Al-Dalami is many things, but one thing I can tell you that he is not is remorseful. While in prison, he was able to get access to a phone somehow and posted on social media bragging about his upcoming release and how he didn't feel sorry at all for his actions. And quite frankly, I think he is a disgusting and sorry excuse for a human being, and he doesn't deserve freedom, and I don't feel sorry about that at all. As we wrap up this week's case, I would like to highlight Jacob's memory and bring the focus back to him, as he's what's most important today. Jacob Rusk was a kind, reliable, ambitious, supportive, and loving young man with a bright future ahead of him. From the people who just knew of him to those who were lucky enough to call him his friend, we were all impacted by his presence. And yes, I did just say we. As some of you may recall in my intro where I gave you a little bit of lore about me, one fact was that I lived in Texas for a while. One of the first schools I attended was Vines High School with Jacob. Jacob was one of my favorite people in that entire school and throughout my high school career. I won't sit here and say we were the best of friends or the closest, but I'm realizing now that grief isn't a competition and it's not comparable. You can grieve the loss of someone you knew your whole life and also grieve the same for someone you barely knew. Kind of like how we grieve when a celebrity we admired passes away. When someone truly had a positive impact on your life, losing them will always hurt. I have a lot of fond memories from Vines High School, and some of the fondest have Jacob in them. I remember one specific day where the freshmen were taking some sort of state test, so the sophomores were cooped up in classrooms, all assigned by last name, and I thank God in the universe every day for giving me the last name Rose and making it so close to Rusk. Because what could have been the most boring day of hours sitting in a classroom with people I barely know was instead a core memory for me, filled with bonding and genuine laughter between Jacob and I. Jacob had such a welcoming and kind aura about him, and he really was a gentle giant. I remember him being so happy and his eyes lighting up as he walked in the room because he realized we had the same room. Jacob also barely knew anyone in the class, but we were mutual friends, and one of the best things about him, and one of my favorites, was that you wouldn't even be able to tell if someone was his best friend or someone he just met 2 minutes ago. He got along and joked with everyone the same, making you feel so comfortable. Jacob was a genuine young man with a heart of gold and great emotional intelligence. He would open up about anything, especially if it meant that you would be able to get comfortable with him and open up about the things you were going through as well. I was actually just recently talking to one of my friends, just remembering Jacob for who he was, and I was like, Jacob was such a girl's guy, and she was like, yeah, like he was that before that term even existed. Like, Jacob was always so supportive and kind, and he just, like, especially towards women, he was just super supportive and kind. And for like this big jock who was just like on the football team and was so cool and had so many friends, like, he still was so humble and sweet, and he was so respectful to women. Like, me and all my girlfriends can recall countless amount of times where he was just always supporting us with anything we were passionate about, anything we were involved in. He was just always rooting for you. And that's what it meant to have Jacob as a friend, like someone who was your number one fan all the time. And me and many people really miss Jacob, and I wish I got the chance to thank him for all he did in my life sooner. And I'm forever grateful for having him as my friend. Jacob leaves behind his mother, doting younger brother, and a city full of people who adored him and have to live life with just his memory now rather than his actual presence. Like I said, Plano was a very tight-knit community, and my heart truly aches for all the people who knew Jacob, especially his best friends who grew up with him and knew him their entire lives. They have had to continue living life without him, and I think the worst part about losing someone you grew up with is continuing to grow older and experience milestones and go through life as they stay the same age. And it really puts things into perspective how truly young they were when they lost their life and how much more life they deserved and more time they deserved on this earth. I actually moved schools like after my 10th grade year. That's when I went to Plano East. So a lot of Jacob's friends that he continued to grow on with and continued his high school career with probably don't know me, and they're probably like, who even is this girl? And that's part of the reason why I was a little nervous, because I didn't want to come off as someone who just like randomly knew this kid for like a year or two. And like I said, it's not a competition and it's not anything to be compared when it comes to grief, but knowing how much I care about Jacob and like the people in his life, I just want to make sure that I acknowledge that there's people out there who hurt way more than I do. Like, they've known him their entire lives. They grew up with him. You guys went through life and saw each other grow up. And I just feel truly sorry for the loss that you guys have all had to go through and continue to go through. And I want to stop crying for this part now, because this is just my piece on the three absolute lowlifes who took our friend away. The three people that this is directed towards now don't deserve to revel in our pain and our sadness, especially since they have no remorse for their actions. So to the three lowlifes who took our friend Jacob, I hope you guys never ever know peace. Whether you are in prison or released, we will make sure that you never feel truly free. And that is not a threat, but a promise. Unfortunately, you guys will get to spend the majority and the rest of your lives and be able to move on. But I hope your actions haunt you for the rest of your lives. I hope they stick with you and eat at you every day the same way that it does to us, because we didn't do this. Jacob didn't deserve this end, and we don't deserve to carry the pain of knowing life without him and wondering what could have been. Honestly, I feel sorry for you all, and sorry for the fact that you could have never and will never amount to even half the man Jacob was and would have been. That's why you felt the need to take his life that night, because you people are simple-minded, good-for-nothing cowards. And I hope all of you are having exactly the days you deserve. The world really didn't deserve Jacob, but we definitely needed him, and I wish so badly that he was still here. I really hope that he didn't die in fear or feel much pain in his final moments. But at the very least, I hope he knows he died a hero, and that his final act was another one of his many selfless deeds. I hope he's watching over us and can see for himself how truly loved, cherished, and adored he was. I hope he can see the impact he made on all of us, and I hope we're making him proud every single day. Oh gosh, I try to stop myself every time from saying sorry, because you're allowed to feel all emotions and everything that you go through. So I'm not sorry for crying and feeling, but I just hope that energy and that sadness didn't transfer over onto you guys, because I don't really want any more sadness. So at the end of every case, before we get into the next part of our show, I'm going to leave you all with some resources that pertain to the case subject. So if you or someone you know is struggling with the loss of someone from gun violence, please utilize or reach out to the following services: TraumaSurvivorsNetwork.org, SurvivorsEmpowered.org, EveryTownSupportFund.org, and you can also call or text 988 for free and confidential emotional support, or text CONNECT to 741-741 to reach a trained crisis counselor 24/7 to help you cope with fear, grief, and anxiety surrounding or following an act of gun violence. Okay, guys, so what makes Mer Murder a little different is that after we finish our cases, the next part of our show, we will be giving the police/investigator ratings and the judge/jury ratings. And this is all ratings based off of their involvement in the case, how they handled it, and if the punishment fits the crime. Scores will be based on a letter scale from A+ to F-. And if you guys agree or disagree, please feel free to leave your opinions in the comments or head over to our Discord, where we will discuss each week's case and also a bunch of other true crime topics. So we will begin with the police investigators. I'm giving Plano PD and their investigators a B for their work. They captured Jacob's murderers in a very short amount of time, 2 of the same day that he was murdered and 1 just 2 days later. But I'm sure that was very easy considering a bunch of Jacob's friends were there and could give witness statements to literally the people that killed him. And not only that, but the one of the friend, Adam, who was already in communication with one of the killers, I'm sure he knew a lot about him and could literally point him out in a lineup like the back of his fucking hand. So, ooh. I don't know if I want to be cussing like that. Sorry, y'all. So all Plano PD really had to do was track down 3 18-year-old boys. Like, where were they going to go, really? I don't remember seeing so much the times that they were captured, but I don't think they had a lot of time. If they did know that they killed Jacob, I don't think that they had enough time to either hide, but I also don't think that they even knew they murdered someone. I feel like the cops probably showed up to their houses or wherever they found them and was like, "You're arrested for murder." And they were like, "What?" Like, they probably thought that they were just out there shooting guns, being pussy. Like, sorry, my family oh my gosh, my family and my friends are watching this. This is so bad. But I really hate these guys, so I'm sorry. I'm actually not sorry. I really think that they were out there just being cowards, just shooting at Jacob and his friends, just like, oh, da, da, da. And I don't think they really knew that they hit anybody. But I feel like, from what I heard, it was really just like a drive-by. Like, they pulled up, started shooting, and sped off. So I don't think they probably even saw Jacob get hit. I don't think they had time to process it. So I'm hoping that they were just captured and they looked dumb as fuck. So yeah, with that, I think Plano PD did above average work, so they get just an above average grade of B. Now for the judge/jury in this case, you are getting a big, fat, monstrous F-. And I'm going to try to be completely unbiased here. I know Jacob was my friend, so it would be really easy for me to be like, oh no, everybody go to hell for what you did and you didn't censor them enough. But I really think it's a joke that a person could take someone's life and get sentenced to 30 years with the possibility of parole for such an insane crime. Like, taking someone's life is crazy. No? Like, I think, whatever. But then it gets worse by giving another person only 9 years for a murder charge with the possibility of parole. And then to triple down on it, you gave the last person, the third person in this case, got, I don't even know his charges. Like, I couldn't find anything. I was looking him up. When I first started my research for Jacob's case, I was looking up all the killers, what they were charged with, anything. The only reason I found the first 2 was because they're still in the Texas inmate database. But the other one, I'm like, okay, I can't find him. I found him on writeaprisoner.com. And I'm just like, okay, like, first of all, you don't deserve to speak to anybody in the outside world. You don't deserve to speak at all ever again. You actually deserve to have your tongue ripped out of your mouth. But Like, why is that the only way I can find him? And then I kept looking. This is like weeks of research, and I kept looking, and recently I've realized that in the little sidebar of Write a Prisoner, it tells you when someone's released and like projected release. And he had one, but it still was upcoming. And then when I last looked at it, it just said 2025. And I was like, oh, so I'm a joke. So yeah, for murder, he gets 5 years, I guess. And not only that, but he had absolutely no remorse for his actions. Like, I don't care if there were any plea deals or leniency due to their ages, but the right thing would have been to make sure these people were put away for life. Because I believe in rehabilitation. I do believe in second chances, but if someone does not care about what they did and they show no remorse, like, what boomer of a judge was there and didn't see that he was posting on Snapchat talking about he didn't care and had no remorse and was not feeling bad for what he did to Jacob? Like, that person does not deserve to be out in the world. He deserves to be in a cave. But yeah, Texas justice system, you're starting off real strong with that F-. Thanks for embarrassing us. And with that, this has been the case of our friend Jacob Law Rusk. Our sources for this week's case were CBSNews.com, Fox4News.com, GunViolenceMemorial.com, Huddle.com, LocalProfile.com, NBCDFW.com, TDCJTexas.gov, WFAA.com, and WriteAPrisoner.com. Okay. Thank you guys so much for listening to the first episode of Mer Murder. I know it's a pretty difficult one to get through. It was just really important for me to do Jacob's case as my first one because he was someone that really had a great impact on my life, and I truly did love Jacob and everything he stood for, everything he represented. It was just really, really important for me to make it my first case because not only did I want his case to have the attention, but I know that as channels grow, and hopefully this one gets huge, but as the show grows, I know people like to go back and see the first case, and I want everyone to be reminded all the time of who Jacob was, and I want to keep his memory alive and just do my part in making sure that we keep Jacob's legacy going. And I really hope that I made all of you guys super proud of me, and most importantly, I really hope that I made Jacob proud. So thank you guys all so much again for tuning in to this week's episode of Mer and Murder, where we put the Mer in murder. You can listen to the podcast on all platforms. You just have to find me at Mer and Murder. And it's not Mer and Murder with the actual letters. It's the amp symbol. Is that what it's called? You can also follow the podcast on TikTok and Instagram at Mer and Murder. That one is actually spelled out, and the TikTok name is a little different, but I'll put everything up on the screen right now if you're watching, but if not, every link will be put in the description of every episode, so you'll always be able to find them there. And also feel free to join our Discord discussion group where we discuss all of the episodes from every week, and we also have a true crime discussion chat where we talk about new true crime cases, any updates and incoming cases, and we just keep ourselves all informed on there. And yeah. With that, I can't thank you guys enough. Thank you so, so much for supporting me and joining me on this new journey and new chapter of my life. And I'm so excited and can't wait to see how much we grow as a community. And yeah, I really hope to see you guys next Wednesday as we put the Mer in murder. Take care of yourselves, and I love you. Bye.